Can a $500 plugin replace all of my diffusion filters? That's the question. Today we're taking a look at a plugin called Scatter. Scatter, made by Video Village, is a plugin that does exactly what it says on the website. It emulates the effects and the look of some of our favorite diffusion filters. Black Pro Mist, Glimmerglass, Hollywood Black Magic, all of these different filters that we've come to know and love. Scatter takes these and actually gives us the ability to apply them in post. Everything always comes down to money. This plugin's $500. Filters, adding them all up, eventually you could get to that same price point pretty quickly. So which one is better? Which one is worth it? Which one should I invest in? Those are all great questions. Those are the questions that I'm asking and that we're going to tackle in this video. First, we're simply just going to do a fun little A/B test. I want to see if I or you can actually see if there's any difference between the plugin and a real filter. I'm curious to see if you guys can pick up on anything that comes across as fake or digital, and I'm going to be looking for the same things while making this test. Second, I thought it would be interesting to actually put a bunch of the real filters side by side with Scatter. It's a pretty cool test. Hope you stick around because I feel like the results might actually surprise you quite a bit. After that, we're going to take a look at how Scatter actually works inside of DaVinci Resolve, playing with all the sliders, changing a bunch of things, and just seeing how it works. And no, Video Village, the company that makes Scatter, is not affiliated with this video whatsoever. Not at all. This video is purely for me and for you because I thought it would be interesting to see the differences and the comparisons between the two. So let's kick it off with the side-by-side test. Curious to see if you can tell the difference between Scatter and the real filter. From my experience as a filmmaker, one of the hardest parts for me when it comes to making videos is finding the right music. That's why I'm actually really excited to be partnering with Audio for this video, because I feel like they're actually making some really cool steps in the industry of curating and finding good songs for us creators to license for our videos. They have their Link Match AI tool, which allows you to copy and paste a song link and get a ton of different results that sound just like it. And they also have their Hans tool, which I personally think is really great because you can describe what kind of song you're looking for, the emotion emotion, the feeling, the energy, and it's going to give you results matching those inputs. So if you're looking for a new music licensing platform, or you're just trying to find a better library of music to choose from for your videos, be sure to check out audio.com and use the code MH70 to get 70% off your first year of music licensing. 70% off means that your first year is just $59. $59 for unlimited music downloads and sound effects downloads, their AI tools, and an incredibly high quality, curated library of music for you to download. It just sounds too good to be true, but it's not. I'll leave a link in my description. And again, if you want 70% off, use my code MH70 at checkout. For this next test, I needed a little bit of help. I couldn't really do this by myself. I don't own all of these filters. So I reached out to my friends over at DC Camera, which is my local film rental house here in the DMV. They were able to help me set up this basic talking head interview modeling setup that we could use to compare these different filters. We set this up in the back of their shop. We bounced the light into a beadboard and then set up a couple of different things in the background so that it would be a little easier to see the differences between the filters. When it comes to the DMV, these guys know everyone and everything about this area and the people who work here, and they're so in touch with current trends with filmmaking, and it definitely shows in their website, their equipment, and just their knowledge of the people who live here. So let's take a look at these clips side by side, comparing what the real life filter looks like versus Scatter's emulation of each filter. Now that you're getting a little bit more familiar with Scatter, let's jump into DaVinci Resolve to see how it actually works and how you might use it for yourself if you're interested in buying this plugin. Scatter likes to be upstream, which means that it needs to be before any sort of color space transforms or nodes like Filmbox. See, it needs to be upstream so that it can run into Filmbox, it can run into a color space transform. Why? Well, when you grab and drop Scatter onto your footage or a node, you'll see that the very first thing here is the source. It wants to know what camera, what color space it's working with. It's got all of the big players, even Apple Log, but what we need is Blackmagic Design Film Gen 5. The plugin defaults to Black Pro Mist. It's one of the most popular filters in the world. But as you can see in this drop-down menu, we have all of these different options. These are all on the website, so if you're interested in seeing specific ones that are on here right now, you can check that out. So without changing any settings, here is what Scatter looks like off and on. This is what it looks like on, off, on, off. One of the things that's most impressive about Scatter is that it's not just a fake like bloom or glow effect just around the highlights. You can see that it's actually doing specific things that a Black Pro Mist filter would do, which is a very wide halation and a very subtle softening effect of the skin. Like that's what you buy Black Pro Mist for, and that's what this version of Black Pro Mist and Scatter is doing. It's doing a really, really good job. So we've talked about the families, and now we have strengths. Obviously, you have a couple of different settings in here. You've got the ability to change from a quarter to a half to a 1 to an eighth, and then you've got an intensity slider to sort of fine tune each to your liking. You also have a focal length slider to change what focal length you want to either emulate or to match what you were shooting. I have mine set to 24 because I was shooting on a 24mm. This next section is actually where things get pretty cool. So if you notice on this bulb here, let's zoom in again because it's just a good example. If I crank the intensity of this way up, you can notice that the highlights aren't necessarily matching what the color of the bulb is. And that's where this comes into play. So if I click this, it changes its color to better match the source. So on and off that, you can kind of see that it's doing a little bit of work. And that's not just on this globe, it's doing it for pretty much everything, even in this backlight up here. This actually allows us to get pretty close to our black pro mist, whereas before, it's not really the same color, but with it on, it does a better job at emulating the source, which is extremely unique when it comes to plugins like this. So kudos to this team for figuring out how to do this. This last tool that I actually use is the highlight adjustment tool. Again, it really is a self-explanatory tool. Enabled, it allows you to just change the intensity of your highlights, which is really nice because instead of just changing the intensity of the entire filter as a whole, you can just affect the highlights. This is a very, very helpful tool in post-production. You know, if you're trying to say mask certain parts of the image, you know, I could take a radial filter and just use it on this one, or I could just use it on this one, you know, and even in that quick example, you know, you could make this one super bright. And then in another instance, you could make this one super bright and this one super dim. You know, that's just not something you can do with a physical filter. So it's a cool thing to think about now with the fact that you could add this in post-production, jump back into the highlight recovery, adjust the saturation a bit, you know, and really fine tune your diffusion, fine tune the softness of your image, and just really be able to have a bit more control than just sticking a strength of a filter on your lens and go into town. Like I said, there are benefits to both, but demonstrating this filter, there's just a lot of things that you can do to really make it really nice in post-production. So that's scatter. Now that you've seen scatter up against its real counterpart and you've seen how it works in DaVinci Resolve, I feel like you should hopefully have a pretty good idea of if this plugin is for you or not. So let's talk about some pros and cons and if I think this plugin is worth it. Some of the pros, obviously, it's an incredibly versatile tool that you can use in your post-production workflows. If you want to add a couple of instances of scatter and use it to mask different objects to increase or decrease their intensity, you know, per instance, then, you know, that's a really unique thing that you cannot do with physical filters. Another pro is, honestly, I think it's price point. If you were to buy a full family of filters at an eighth, a quarter, a half, and a full, I mean, that's about $500 depending on what kind of filter size you get. Don't even get me started on the 4x5 filters or the sizes bigger that cost about $400 to $500 a filter. For one filter, it's $500. So Scatter being able to offer all of these different filter families and their different strengths and the different tools to sort of adjust it the way that you like it, I mean, that's a pretty big pro to me. Another pro is the usability. I mean, talk about a simple plugin. These guys really care about the plugins and the apps that they make because of the different things that they have already made, like Screen and Filmbox. Just the user experience all around is phenomenal. And now for the cons, or con, because I really only have one. As you saw during the test at DC Camera, the comparison between the emulated version from Scatter to the physical version of the filter were pretty different. Now, it was the whole purpose, I think, of the plugin to sort of match one-to-one what these filters look like and their strengths. Putting them side by side, however, revealed that oftentimes the physical version of the filter was stronger than the scatter version of the filter. Now, this might have been intentional on their end, you know, to try and give you the ability to tweak it in post and adjust things and increase intensities and whatever, but I don't know, that feels kind of like it doesn't really hit at the purpose of making a plugin that's one-to-one accurate to the physical counterpart. You know, it doesn't make a ton of sense to me why it wouldn't match perfectly. And maybe it indicates that I did something wrong in the back end, or I'm not understanding the approach that they took. I don't know. I don't know if this is necessarily a deal breaker when it comes to, you know, is the plugin actually worth what it's doing? I mean, it's still a really good plugin. It's emulating filters in the way that they respond to light uniquely and differently. So I will absolutely give it that. It's just its perfect comparison to its physical counterpart just isn't there for me. That's all I got for this video. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you found something useful or helpful from this video. If you did, feel free to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to check out more on the channel, feel free to hit the subscribe button. We're doing a bunch of stuff related to filmmaking, photography down the road. But until then, guys, I'll catch you in the next one.